Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is my absolute pleasure to join you today in Chillwave Studios. My name is Dr. Chillwavian. If you've attended any of my lecture series in the past on various topics such as Pokémon Anatomy 101 or the examination demonstrations and clinical demonstrations, then you would know that I am the lead clinician and head researcher at the Center for Excellence in Pokémon Veterinary Medicine. I have been invited to speak to you today from Chillwave ASMR to share with you some important facts and details as they pertain to Pokémon Anatomy. Today, we will be going through the key physiologic and anatomical details related to several very important common Pokémon. I've been instructed to ensure that some of the sounds that I produce today are favorable. Please forgive me if I appear tired to you. I have just come off of a very busy shift at the emergency department at the Center for Excellence in Pokémon Veterinary Medicine. We had a very difficult case of a Squirtle that had been kept out of the water for too long. Rest assured, though, we were able to rehydrate the Squirtle adequately, and they have been admitted to our internal medicine service for further observation. I have with me here the primary textbook that we utilize when studying Pokémon Anatomy. This is the Pokéanatomy Guide by author Christopher Stoll, who is a primary anatomicist and physiologist. I would like to begin now with our lesson in Pokémon Anatomy. We will begin our lesson today with Diglet. Diglet live their lives mostly underground, burrowing through soil and creating complex tunnel networks that can stretch for dozens of kilometers. Their bodies bear mixed insectoid and mammalian characteristics, and in order to endure the intense pressures of their subterranean habitat, Diglet possess a calcium-based internal skeleton, as well as a thick exoskeleton of chitinous plates. It is believed they are in the last in a long lineage of unique subterranean life forms that branched from a common ancestor of mammals and arthropods over 500 million years ago. Their brown heads are smooth and rigid, adapted for tight passages and tunnels. In their underground world, these Pokémon are vulnerable to the sun's ultraviolet radiation and emerge above ground only briefly, and typically during overcast conditions. As they travel through the ground, Diglet swallows soil, sifting through it. In their complex digestive systems, organic materials and trace minerals are filtered out and consumed, while the rest is excreted. They also gnaw opportunistically at tree roots and underground tubers. Let's take a moment and examine the anatomical structure of a Diglet. As you can see, the Diglet possess a pair of very sensitive eyes. They have a primary mouth flap through which they're able to sift through soil and other ground material. They have a coxa shoulder section here in this region, often remaining subterranean. They have significant exoskeletonous plates and chitinous claws here, similar to what we would know as a mole. These are often used for digging and propelling itself forward, has a dense skull here. This is to ensure that it is able to take the brunt of impact and force as it passes through dense soil, clay, rock, debris, and other rooty structures. They have a supportive and very strong musculature and a bony mandible here. As you can see, this is what they would use to sift through any material that they take in. They have a large, dense, and very strong stomach, a soil siphon here, and as you can see, the soil siphon has several layers of bulbous material. This is where the soil is siphoned through and filtered. They contain a symbiotic bacterial pouch. Given the copious bacteria that live within the soil, this is helpful to them in taking in any minerals and nutrients that they require. These are the notable tarsal bones and metatarsal bones of the great chitinous foot. Let's take a closer look at the behavior. Diglet have many natural predators and are hunted by wild vulpix, ekans, and growlithe. They are skittish by nature and prefer to flee underground rather than fight. Due to their small stature and relative lack of defenses, Diglets spend most of their lives in large colonies. These collectives can include hundreds of individuals, controlling vast territories with clearly defined borders marked by physical barriers like rivers or large boulders. Diglet call to each other when potential danger is spotted, using a descriptive range of extremely low-frequency sounds that carry through their intricate network of tunnels. It's very interesting. We have a subterranean research group who works very closely with Diglet communities in the local Kanto region. Next, we should take a closer look at the next evolutionary form of Diglet. This would of course be Dugtrio. As the reproductive phase of Diglet's life cycle, Dugtrio are actually a parent Diglet and their two budding offspring. The three organisms are joined beneath the surface by a mass of undifferentiated tissue and will not fully separate until environmental conditions are suitable. Each component head of a Dugtrio contains its own brain and spinal column. However, until separation, Dugtrio's neurobiology is linked between the three heads, allowing them to share a collective consciousness. Unlike Dugtrio never come into conflict with their own bodies and coordinate actions and abilities seamlessly as though they were a single organism. This is a symbiotic mechanism whereby Diglet and Dugtrio are able to reproduce. Diglet are hermaphroditic, possessing both male and female sexual organs. Despite this, they cannot fertilize themselves and must find a mate in order to exchange genetic materials. This is necessary to promote biodiversity within the Dugtrio and Diglet population. Diglet mate in pairs, often at night near the soil surface. Each Pokemon transfers sperm to the other and stores in specialized reproductive sheaths. After mating, the fertilized Diglet go their separate ways and prepare to transform into a Dugtrio. Several months later, the Diglet undergoes traumatic transformation. Its body begins to subdivide and differentiate, ultimately resulting in three distinct heads joined at the base. Ordinarily, these three Diglet would fully divide after 4 to 6 months, but if the Pokemon cannot consume enough nutrients within the gestational period, the offspring may never fully separate from their parent. Often, if a Dugtrio is captured, the stress of its domestication will cause the budding process to cease and prevent separation. Let's take a closer look at the anatomic composition here. As you can see, we have the parent body as the central structure, the notable cranium, which is not unlike a Diglet. We have the, again, supportive musculature. Here we have the two budding offspring. We have our simple, sensitive eye, and you can see this subterranean mass of tissue where they are all connected. These are all developing structures that are here, and developing structures once again here. Their chitinous claws remain. These chitinous claws will continue to develop as they grow older. It is much more difficult for a Diglet to, a Dugtrio to move large distances given its size and given the challenges of navigating in a subterranean environment. Let's look now closely at their behavior. Dugtrio integrate easily into social lives of subterranean Diglet colonies and are typically employed as lookouts. This is given their inability to travel long distances. Their 3 heads are capable of full 360 degrees view of their surrounding landscape, making them valuable additions to the group. Let's continue. Yes, Stonejourner. A wonderful card. Of course, we at the Center for Excellence in Pokemon Veterinary Medicine are not immune to the wiles of Pokemon card collecting. I'd like to bring your attention now to Geodude. Geodude is a small, armored Pokemon with muscular 5-fingered hands, often found in mountainous regions. These strange creatures use their brawny arms to scale rough, icy, and rocky terrain. They are excellent climbers, famous for their incredible strength and durability. Their thick arms are heavily vascularized, containing aortic nodule that compensate for their small hearts and supplement the circulatory system's pumping capacity. With such a compact torso, many of Geodude's organ systems are stunted. It requires large quantities of food daily in order to compensate for its short and inefficient digestive tract. Geodude is fully omnivorous and possesses grinding molars as well as slicing incisors. Geodude's remarkable armored skin is comprised of segmented layers of calcium carbonate or chalk, interwoven with thin veins of protein. The positively charged protein binds tightly to a negative charge on the chalk, creating a web of connective glue that holds the structure together. This absorbs and distributes the shockwave from heavy blows without permanently damaging the Pokemon's skin. Because of this, Geodudes can endure incredible stress and survive blows that would shatter more common materials. Let's take a closer look. As you can see, the common Geodude's external surface will be very familiar to you. There is a protective bone strut within the dense arms. You can see the aortic nodules here within the arm. Calcium carbonate armor here. Geodude has a very small brain and also very small lungs in the base here. There's a large, dense mandible, and in order to support these large muscular arms, a notable pectoralis minor muscle is visible here. The muscles of the arm are significant, with a brachialis and brachioradialis, as well as a deltoid muscle, very visible and prominent. There's also large dexterous hands. This is the lateral frontalis muscle here. An excellent image of a very complex but simple organism. Let's look closely at the behavior. Male Geodude compete seasonally for mates, bashing their bodies together repeatedly until one competitor begins to show signs of fatigue or damage and retreats. Both males and females often mate with multiple partners during breeding season, producing a single egg annually. Geodude hunt via ambush, curling into tight balls that resemble ordinary stones, waiting patiently until a small Pokemon approaches. In the wild, Geodude live 12 to 15 years, with their lifetimes limited by the wearing down of their teeth and calcium carbonate armor. In captivity, however, they can easily live up to 20 or more years. Onwards. Here we have the next iteration of the Geodude line. Graveler. Huge and heavily armored, Graveler are 4 crushing it and lapping up the remains with their toothless mouths. This predatory instinct remains strong in captive Graveler, and they must be carefully trained not to crash and consume their smaller companions. The physiology of a Graveler is remarkable. Graveler are known to ingest stones called gastroliths to aid digestion. These remain in the gastrointestinal tract for months, grinding away the bone, feathers, and fur that Gravelers swallow whole. This behavior has given rise to the common misconception that Graveler eat only minerals, and more significantly, the dangerous assumption that they do not possess any threat to humans. Graveler's arched spinal column bends along the circumference of its spherical body. Plates of bony armor anchor to each vertebrae with flexible bands of tissue between segments. These vertebrae and their attendant plates gradually fuse together to create Golum's formidable shell. Their stunted legs are poorly suited to climbing or running. Graveler uses them only for balance when standing, and moves at high speeds by grasping the ground with its forearms and hurling its bulk forward into a clumsy gallop. If on high ground, Graveler will form into a ball and roll downhill, attempting to kill prey quickly with its weight and momentum. Momentum is the biggest asset to a Graveler. Let's take a closer look at the anatomy. As you can see, they have a much more bulky exterior than Geodude. They also have 2 additional limbs. You can see the large dorsal crests and cranial crests visible here. The vertebral column is here and is arched back along the posterior aspect of the Graveler. There's a large notable scapula here for maximal shoulder movements. You can see their phalanges here, and they come into a blunted 3-fingered hand. They have a notable pectoral crest and primary pectoral muscles below. You can see they have actually small metacarpal bones here. The heart is quite small at the central core of the Graveler. They have a secondary pectoral muscle set here. This is notable because Graveler requires a significant amount of postural support when standing. They have blunted feet here, and this is the external feature of their secondary arm. We'll look closer now at their behavior. Unique among its other evolutionary stages, Graveler possesses a pair of smaller secondary limbs sprouting from its midsection. These are necessary during reproduction, used to grip the partner Pokémon in a process known as amplexus. The male and female clasp their smaller limbs and mate. Graveler can stay in amplexus for hours or even days as the female releases dozens and dozens of newly fertilized eggs. As you can see, the Graveler is only 1 meter high. Moving forward, we can see the Golum. Golum is the final evolutionary form of Geodude and Graveler. Golum are spherical, armored Pokemon almost completely encased in a large bony shell. The plates of their shell are conjoined with the Golum's ribcage and comprised of living, highly vascularized bone. Golum armor is so tough that it was once believed that they were literally comprised of stone. This long-standing misconception was due in part to the various lichens and moss that tend to grow on the shells of these slow-moving Pokemon. Golum develop from Graveler only after reproduction, and typically in response to some kind of dramatic environmental change. Graveler's secondary arms fall off during evolution, while their primary arms diminish in relative size and strength to become Golum's upper limbs. These small appendages can be folded tightly to Golum's body, forming the Pokemon into a rough sphere and allowing them to roll along at high speeds. While Golum is capable of reproduction, most offspring produced during this Pokemon's lifetime will occur during their 2 less evolved stages. Golum grow throughout their lives and shed their skin annually. This process is called molting and begins with Golum scraping itself against tree stumps, causing their skin to split and begin to fall away. This process takes several days and is essential to maintaining the Pokemon's health. Let's have a closer look at the anatomic structures here. As you can see, they have calcium carbonate armor, and below that is a spongy supportive tissue here with a vascularized base. They have a notable forward-facing scapula here, and the vertebrae are much more dense and aligned than its earlier iterations. The larger lung base is noted here. The Golum continues to exude a significant amount of musculature with a notable pectoral and abdominal muscle base here. There is a gastrolith reservoir here. This is necessary for ongoing digestion, and they will typically consume several stones frequently to assist in this process. This notable abdominal plate here and here, as well as here, exists to protect the vital organs and vital structures within the Golum's abdomen. They have a notable wrist joint here with clumsy armored hands and broad four-toed feet. Let's look closer at its behavior. Like Graveler, Golum hunt via ambush and make their homes in mountainous terrain. The majority of their time is spent conserving energy and basking in the sun. When potential prey pass below them, Golum tuck in their limbs and head tightly into their spherical body and launch themselves downhill after their target. Once a Golum has gained momentum, it is difficult for the Pokemon to stop or slow down. In many mountainous communities, large stone moats are built around the outskirts of town in order to divert rolling Golums safely away from humans. This is a significant and important point regarding Golum's ability to hunt. Once the Golum begins rolling, and this is true for Graveler, it's very difficult to change a vector heading. The actual direction of movement for a Golum is only based on hard surrounding structures that would funnel its movement, and so it is difficult for a Golum to always hit its target head on. Moving forward. I'd now like to discuss a fire-type Pokemon called Ponyta. Ponyta are rapid, four-legged herbivores, common in open plains and grasslands the world over. They graze on grasses, shrubs, and low-hanging branches, and depend on their great speed and acute senses to escape predators. Ponyta are well known for their glandular system of flaming jets that erupt from their spinal column. Like Charmander, this physiological system derives its fuel from plants in the Pokemon's diet. Its function is defensive, preventing Electabuzz and other prairie predators from leaping into Ponyta's pack to sever their spinal column. Their physiology is built for speed and stamina. With large lungs, efficient gaits, and durable muscles, Ponyta's skull is elongated to fit its many grinding teeth. These are necessary to sufficiently break down the cellulose in tough prairie plants prior to digestion. Their complex digestive systems divert into a series of orifices along their vertebral column where flammable biological compounds can be concentrated and ejected. The skin around their upper body is flame retardant and protects them from their own fiery expulsions. Their brain size indicates Ponyta have a higher degree of sentience compared to Tauros, and may even be able to control the size and temperature of their flames. Let's take a closer look at this very fascinating Pokemon. As you can see, the Ponyta has an elongated skull. They have large, sensitive ears. They have a flaming mane here, and with a notable isoprene reserve here. Isoprene is one of the primary biologic factors that drives the ongoing flame. They have a primary flame expulsion here along the tail. This is their spinal column here, as noted this drawing. The trapezius muscle is a notable and strong, dense muscle, as well as the latissimus dorsi. They have large hoofed feet and a prominent ankle joint, and they have here a coffin joint cavity. as well. These are very fascinating prairie creatures. Ponyta are highly social and live in herds of up to 30 individuals, traveling great distances in search of food and fresh water. They are affectionate towards members of their herd, but hostile and skittish towards any organism outside of its social group. With great skill and patience, a Ponyta's loyalty and trust can be extended to a human owner. Once this bond is formed, Ponyta will aspire to defend and obey their trainer to the death. Ponyta are among the first Pokemon ever successfully domesticated and have been human companions for thousands of years. Very interesting. The next Pokemon that I would like to draw your attention to is the next in line for the evolutionary tree of Ponyta. This is Rapidash. Rapidash are recognizable by their specialized forehead horn, tall stature, and extremely muscular build. They are much larger than Ponyta and possess a more sophisticated flame system along their spine and legs. Rapidash's fiery mane is generated by a series of asymmetrical, expulsive sphincters that line their spine and back limbs. These orifices are linked to their intestines and are typically obscured by crackling flame. Rapidash's digestive system produces the flammable material for its mane and contains tens of billions of symbiotic microorganisms. It is often believed that it is the symbiotic relationship with microorganisms that results in the plant matter and cellulose to be broken down into isoprene and other flammable materials that are then ejected from those orifices. These microorganisms help the Pokemon extract nutrients from their vegetable diet through fermentation, converting carbohydrates into fatty acids and volatile gases. Using this process, Rapidash can produce well over 2,000 liters of flammable gas per day. Though it is a relatively inefficient method of digestion and represents a considerable energy loss, Rapidash recovers some of this lost energy by depending upon its own fire as a source of heat and expending less energy thermoregulating. Let's take a closer look. So as you can see, the Rapidash also has a large, prominent head with a notable central horn here. They have widely spaced eyes and, again, very sensitive ears. They have a significant cranial flame explosion here. They have a notable compilation of orifices here that result in the expulsion of flammable gas to maintain this ongoing flame expulsion. There is a dense network of capillaries and arterial tissue here, and the intestinal linkage to this tissue is noted here. There is also an isoprene reservoir here, and this is where the isoprene is stored prior to expulsion. This is the interior flame here, and there is notably terminal flame expulsions here along the ankle joint. They have a dense and sturdy rib cage here with billows and large lungs here. This supports their agility and endurance. Fascinating. Let's take a closer look at Rapidash's behavior. Like Ponyta, Rapidash are herding Pokemon that have a notoriously strong fight or flight response. Their first reaction to threats is to flee, though if their young are threatened, they will charge and attempt to gore an attacker with their forehead horn. Rapidash are well adapted for speed and endurance, allowing them to outrun almost any other Pokemon over open terrain. Rapidash travel in large groups mixed with their lower evolutionary form. Occasionally, they will even fall lower in the social rank than Ponyta. Within their herd, they serve as the defensive caste, keeping constant watch for Electabuzz and Arcanine. When danger is spotted, Rapidash sound the alarm with a loud whiny and flee up to 60 kilometers per hour. Fascinating. I would like to thank you very much for joining for today's lesson. Today we have spoken about Diglet and Diglet's lineage, as well as Geodude and Geodude's lineage. We've also gotten into some very interesting information regarding the fire-type Pokemon, Ponyta and Rapidash. We will continue this series in the near future. Until then, happy studying and good luck with your learning around Pokemon Anatomy and Physiology. I thank you very much for having me today in the studio, and thank you to Chillwave ASMR for the invitation. I welcome you to reach out to the Center for Excellence in Pokemon Veterinary Medicine if you are seeking volunteer opportunities or are seeking to foster a Pokemon in need of rehabilitation. I will leave you there for today. Thank you so much, and until next time, goodbye.